Assalamualaikum Warahmatullahi Wabarakatuh. We are from Group T of the research proposal in class 7C. On this occasion, we would like to present our result of discussion, the empire and its discontent. Before we start our presentation, I would like to introduce our members first. I am Rahma Diva Lestari, and my partners are Muhammad Imam Wahyudi, Tsaniah Yaumil Rohmah, Aginta Alfadara Restiana, and Muhamad Faza. Our agenda today is to answer this research question displayed on the screen. Next slide, please. Yes, so these are the research questions that we are going to answer. And for the first question is going to be answered by Aginta Alfadara Restiana. To Aginta Alfadara Restiana, you may present your answer now.
Okay, thank you, Rahma Diva. Now we go to the first topic. What is imperialism? The word imperialism comes from Latin word imperium, means to rule or something about supreme power. Imperialism means a policy or political system applied by a country to control another country in an effort to gain power or profit from there. Next. The characteristic of imperialism. The imperialism is carried out by building new powers by establishing a colonial-style government system in their colonies. With that power, they can obtain raw materials, fertile land, cheap labor, and markets, not only for industrial purposes. Usually, imperialism also instills a lot of principle or cultural values, so, so that it can be fed the local culture. They are civilized, while the colonized are inferior, uncivilized, and uneducated. So they have the guise of coming there to make them educated and civilized. Next. Based on the timeline, imperialism is divided into two. The first is old imperialism, which happened before the Industrial Revolution. The importance is to have glory, wealth, and spread religion. This period was carried by Portuguese, Spanish, and Byzantines. While the second is modern imperialism that happened after the Industrial Revolution, where they were more to meet industrial needs and were carried out by Britain, France, Netherlands, Germany, and Italy. The next slide talks about colonialism and will be brought by Sania.
Thank you, Aginta. Okay, let's move on to my topic. My topic is what is colonialism? To define colonialism, first of all, along with imperialism, colonialism is technically a practice of domination. Why? Because it involves the subjugation of one people to another. Colonialism is often treated as synonyms with imperialism because imperialism also involves political and economic control over a dependent territory as well as colonialism does. The etymology of colonialism is created from the term colony, the Latin word colonus, meaning farmer. This root reminds us that the practice of colonialism usually involves the transfer of population to a new territory where the arrivals live as permanent settlers while maintaining political allegiance to their country of origin. Last but not least, we can deny the existence of Western tradition and its universal domination within colonized countries are the majority of the practice of colonialism. So it's basically about justice and natural law in colonized countries using the practice of European sovereignty over native people. Next. Colonialism is not a modern phenomenon. Why? Because we can see that world history is full of examples of one society gradually expanding by incorporating adjacent territory and settling its people on newly conquered territory. For the famous examples, such as the ancient Greeks set up colonies as did the Romans, the Moors, and the Ottomans. However, colonialism is not restricted to a specific time or place. It develops over time, like in the 16th century, colonialism changed decisively because of technological developments in navigation that began to connect more remote parts of the world. Fast-sailing ships made it possible to reach distant ports and to sustain close ties between the center and the colonies. Thus, The modern European colonial project emerged when it became possible to move large numbers of people across the ocean and to maintain political sovereignty in spite of geographical dispersion. This entry used the term colonialism to describe the process of European settlement and political control over the rest of the world, including the Americas, Australia, the parts of Africa, and Asia. The difficulty of defining colonialism stems from the fact that the term is often used as a synonym for imperialism. Both colonialism and imperialism were forms of conquest that were expected to benefit Europe economically and strategically. The term colonialism is frequently used to describe the settlement of North America, Australia, New Zealand, Algeria, and Brazil, places that were controlled by a large population of permanent European residents. Uh, Next will be presented by Faza.
Okay, thank you so much for Tsaniah. And now we are talking about the what is Orientalism. The concept of Orientalism is that existence and development of every culture impulse the existence of a different and inevitably competitive other or alter ego. Orientalism is like a word of Oriental, which means an individual or people of the Orient. As an adjective, the word qualifies anything belong to the East. Example like the landscape, the literature, attitude, even the business, and the country, and etc. The term Orientalism is mostly used academically to signify Western doctrines, and this about the Orient and for Orientalist means a person who studies or writes about the Orient. Now we have the definition of Orientalism based on the adversary, and there's a three. First is Orientalism is a style of thought based upon the ontological and epistemological distinctions made between the Orient and most of the time the Occident. The second is that Orientalism is a field of academic research that includes everyone who teach, investigated, and write about the Orient. And the second, and the third is that Orientalism is a corporate institutions for dealing with the Orient beginning in the 18th century. And the most general definition for Orientalism is a Western style for dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient or Middle East. And now, based on the advertised books of Orientalism, we can make four claims about it. The first is Orientalism portrays itself as an objective area of study. It has been utilized to legitimize the West's political dominance over the East. And the second, rather than objectively researching the East, Orientalism was more concerned with identifying itself via the mirror of the East. And the third, by perceiving the Orient as a homogeneous group. Point 1 and 2 are generate and reinforced. The essentials viewpoint on people groups and culture was incorrect. The label Orient and Occident are likewise invalid. Nonetheless, he utilized them because that is how the Orientalists have framed the debate. And the last is Orientalist intellectuals are relics of the system from which they emerge. As a result, they can but distort the other, and as a result, we require the subterm to speak for itself. Okay, now we are moving to the next material that will present by my friend.
Okay, thank you very much, Faza. Please next. Okay, so I will explain about the differences between anti-colonial and decolonial in ways of thinking. Okay, next. First of all, there is coming from the word anti-colonial is coming from the colonialism, which refers to the direct political control of a society and its people by a foreign ruling state. And the definition of anti-colonial is the political struggle of colonized people against their cultural, economic, and political domination. However, meaning of decolonialism can also be understood as a specific anti-colonial ideology, which emphasizes the need for the restoration of local control in order to gain both political sovereignty and freedom. The decolonialism can also be seen both as a specific historical period and an ideology. Decolonialism is the collapse of the colonialism and the process of gaining independence from the motherland. Okay, next. And the difference between them, first is the anti-colonialism and decolonialism can be seen as two reactions to traditional colonialism and its successor, or we state is neocolonialism. And the second one is although the ideal of the anti-colonialism and decolonialism is to overcome the colonial past, the political philosophy on which it is founded can take many different forms. So it means the anti-colonialism and decolonialism is teach us about to oppose the colonial to get the equal right. Okay, that is my explanation. And next will be present with my friends. Thank you.
Thank you for the chance, Imam. So based on the research question, I would like to explain how colonialism pertains to Indonesia today. Turn to the next slide, please. Yes, as displayed on the screen, colonialism still affects Indonesia in these fields. Whether we realize it or not, politically, colonialism has affected our current government. It can be shown by how our capital city is located in Jakarta, which used to be the center of Netherlands government during the colonialism era. Although we have done the decentralization, I believe that we can still notice that the majority of our government is still centered in Jakarta, such as the presidential place, parliament building, etc. Aside from this effect, Orientalism, as stated before, views Orient or the way European and other countries from the West call country that they dominated, which are mostly in the East, as their superior. By the existence of this view in Indonesia, the citizens view people from Western who dominated them at that time as superior. Even until now, some citizens still consider the Western as a superior. For instance, when people make arguments in English, some people would still consider that their argument is more valid than those who use Indonesian to state their arguments. Some people also still think that the Western culture is much cooler than Indonesian, and it results in they get more appreciated than our own culture. Not only affecting the social and culture in Indonesia, Orientalism and colonialism also affect our economy. We can see it by how we see West as superior and more stable than any other countries in the East, which results in making the US dollar as the reference to our currency. Then our economy is still dominated by them right now. The positive things that affect Indonesia are the development of our infrastructure, such as the road and some buildings used by our current government. And we can also see by the usage of civil law, which is adopted from Europe and still being used until this very second. That being said, that is all that we could present for this discussion. Thank you for your attention. I hope our discussion could help you in understanding colonialism, Orientalism, imperialism, and how it affects our country until this very day. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.